All right, welcome back everyone for another deep dive. You know how this works. We take a topic, and today's topic is resilience, and we go deep.
Sounds good.
And to help us with this topic, we have an expert. Welcome to the show.
Thank you. I'm excited to be here.
Glad to have you. And actually, to make things even more interesting today, we're going to try to look at this whole idea of resilience through a lens, like a specific lens.
Right.
Right? And the lens is wabi-sabi.
Oh, okay.
So I don't know, are you familiar with wabi-sabi?
I am, yeah. Wabi-sabi is a Japanese concept, and it's essentially about finding beauty in things that are imperfect, impermanent, and simple.
Okay, yeah, that's a great way to put it.
Yeah.
So, like, what are some, like, if you had to kind of give an image of what wabi-sabi is, to someone who had never heard of it before, like, what would be some of the things that come to mind?
Yeah, so you can think of things like a traditional Japanese teacup that's been repaired with gold.
Okay, yeah.
So it's cracked, but those cracks are highlighted with gold, so they become part of the beauty of the object.
Oh, that's interesting. Yeah, I like that.
Yeah. Or the way moss grows on a stone lantern in a garden.
Okay.
So it's this kind of natural aging process that adds a sense of grace and history to the object.
Right.
That's wabi-sabi.
Hmm. And so when we think about those images and then we try to tie it to resilience,
Hmm.
what are some connections that you see? Like, how does this concept of wabi-sabi relate to this idea of resilience?
Well, I think resilience is all about adapting and growing in the face of challenges and difficulties,
Okay.
right? And wabi-sabi reminds us that change is inevitable. Things are always in flux. Nothing is permanent.
Right, right. So you're kind of like embracing those imperfections. You're embracing the impermanence of life, and in a way that helps you become more resilient.
Exactly.
Okay, I like that. So we did some research. We have some sources, and they kind of outline this interesting um, approach to cultivating resilience using like the ideas of wabi-sabi.
Okay.
And it's a three-step process. So I thought maybe we could kind of go through each of these steps and see how it relates.
Sounds good.
What do you think?
Let's do it.
So the first step is, it says create redundancies.
Okay.
And I feel like that sounds, at first glance, it sounds kind of like technical, maybe?
Yeah.
Right. So what does that even mean? Like create redundancies in terms of resilience?
Sure. So creating redundancies is all about building in backups and fail-safes into your life.
Okay.
So, we often use the analogy of having a spare tire in your car, right?
Well, right.
That's a redundancy. It's there in case you get a flat tire. But to connect it to wabi-sabi, you can think about a Japanese garden again. Have you ever noticed how the paths in a garden often meander, offering multiple routes to get to the same destination?
Hmm. I never thought of that, but yeah, you're right.
It's like a built-in redundancy, right? If one path is blocked for some reason, you can simply take another. So it's kind of accepting that things don't always go as planned and being prepared for those disruptions.
Right. So I guess in like our own lives, that could be anything from having a backup plan at work.
Right.
If something doesn't go the way you expected it to, you have another way of approaching it. Diversifying investments, maybe, so you're not putting all your eggs in one basket.
Absolutely.
Even having multiple roads to get home.
Exactly.
If there's traffic on one road, you have another way. I like that. I never thought of it that way.
Yeah.
And it does tie into that wabi-sabi in that sense of like, life is acknowledging its own unpredictable nature.
Exactly.
And we're kind of preparing for it. That's interesting. So I guess thinking about that then, where in your life could you benefit from more redundancies?
Yeah, that's a good question for all of us, really.
Yeah. What areas feel a little too fragile?
Yeah.
Like you're too reliant on everything going perfectly.
Right, right.
And maybe we can think about ways to kind of shore those up. Okay, so that's the first step, creating redundancies. Now, the second step is bet conservatively in certain areas and take many small risks in others.
Okay.
So it's kind of like a balancing act here.
Yeah, it is. It reminds me actually of the Japanese art of bonsai.
Okay, interesting.
So you have this, solid, stable trunk of the bonsai tree, right?
Right.
And that represents your core needs.
Oh.
Things like housing, health, financial security. And those are the areas where you want to be conservative.
Right.
You want to build a strong foundation. But then you have the branches, right?
Yeah.
Reaching out in different directions. And those represent areas where you can take calculated risks, trying new things, exploring your creative side, pushing your boundaries a little bit.
I like that metaphor a lot. It's like, the bonsai, it's both enduring, it's got that solid trunk,
Right.
but then it's also ever changing.
Yeah.
It's reaching out, you're shaping it. It's this beautiful, dynamic living thing. And so I guess, when you tell that to wabi-sabi, again, it's like recognizing that life is impermanent.
Exactly.
And so we can find beauty both in those things that provide stability and the things that bring novelty and growth.
Exactly. And by taking those calculated risks, you also reduce your fragility. You're not putting all your eggs in one basket.
Right. Which actually perfectly segues into the third and final step, right?
Yes.
Which is, it says here, get rid of the things that make you fragile.
Yes,
And that seems, at first, a little counterintuitive,
it does.
right? Like, why would we want to get rid of things to become more resilient? Like, shouldn't we be adding more things to kind of make us stronger?
Well, sometimes the things we cling to are actually what's making us weaker.
Okay.
So think about physical clutter in your home. It weighs you down,
Right.
it takes up space, it can be stressful. But this also applies to intangible things like toxic relationships
Oh.
or limiting beliefs that we hold about ourselves.
Right.
These things can really sap our energy and prevent us from growing.
I see. So it's like they create this fragility because you're holding on to these things that are actually not serving you. They're
Exactly.
weighing you down.
Exactly. And how does this tie back into wabi-sabi? Well, wabi-sabi reminds us that everything is in flux, that change is the only constant. Clinging to things, whether physical or emotional, creates this false sense of permanence, and it makes us brittle.
Okay.
By letting go, by embracing the natural flow of things, we create space for something new to emerge. We become more adaptable, more resilient.
It's almost like a shedding of old skin.
It is.
So it kind of makes me reflect, what do I need to let go of to become more resilient? What about you? What stands out to you from all this?
I think what resonates most with me is this idea of active acceptance.
Okay.
Wabi-sabi isn't about passive resignation.
Right.
It's about engaging with life's impermanence and finding beauty within it.
Yeah.
And that's what resilience is all about, too. It's
Yeah.
not about avoiding hardship or pretending it doesn't exist. It's about acknowledging those challenges, adapting to them, and using them as opportunities to learn and grow.
And I think that's so beautifully put. So to kind of recap, the 3 steps that we've discussed, creating redundancies, balancing stability with exploration, and letting go of what makes us fragile,
Yeah,
they all kind of point back to these core principles of wabi-sabi.
absolutely.
The imperfection, the impermanence, the simplicity.
Yeah, and by incorporating these steps into our lives, we can cultivate a deeper sense of resilience, allowing us not only to survive life's inevitable storms, but to thrive in the face of them.
I like that a lot. Thrive in the face of them.
Yeah.
Not just survive, but thrive.
Yes.
So listeners, I hope you found this deep dive helpful. As you go about your day, consider, how can you incorporate some of these principles into your own life? What redundancies could you create? What small risks could you take? And what might you need to let go of to make space for new growth and resilience?
Great questions to consider.
Keep in mind that image of the bonsai tree, right? Be both grounded and ever-evolving. Find beauty in each stage of your journey. Thanks for joining us. Until next time.